The ambitious goal of the Centenary Campaign is to plant 20 million trees in Kenya's forests. I took the opportunity to talk to ITF CEO Andy Egan and ITF Programme Manager Paul Lear to ask them what it's all about.
Well, the Centenary Campaign, well, it's probably worth saying how it started, because I was visiting one of our partners, Save Mount Kenya Forests from Extinction Group, in 2013, and they were running a training session with local smallholder farmers about on agroforestry and improving the crops on their smallholder farms through the use of planting trees on farms. And it was during that training session that I was just chatting with the coordinator, Paulino Mugendi, and he was telling me about a deforested area of Mount Kenya Forest, which was about 2,000 hectares in size. And it was that conversation which led to the idea of setting up a 10-year long campaign to plant millions of trees in Mount Kenya Forest. So that was where the seed of the idea came from. And we later developed the plan in a lot more detail and decided to aim to plant as many as 20 million trees across a number of key montane forests in Kenya, which are also known as the water towers. And that was supported by our Board of Trustees and also by local partners. And for such a big enterprise, planting 20 million trees across a 10-year period, we wanted to bring in other partners to work with. So we're going to be working with Kenya Forest Service, KEFRI, which is the Seed Institute in Kenya, and Botanic Gardens Conservation International, as well as our local community-based partners in Kenya. And we envisage there being as many as 7 or 8 sites over the 10-year period to actually plant as many as 20 million trees. One of the really important things for us in doing a long-term campaign is that one of the challenges that we've had as ITF and being a tree planting organisation is that a lot of projects we may fund organisations for 1 year or 2 years, but if they're planting trees that don't mature for perhaps up to 100 years, then how do we actually know what's happened 10, 20, 30, let alone 100 years later? I mean, we've only been here 91 years, so there'll still be trees that are approaching maturity that may have been planted way back in 1922 even. So as a organisation that gets funds, and we often have to report on them, it's very difficult to report on the full benefits of the trees that we've planted to the communities, to biodiversity, within a very short time frame. So one of the main reasons we want to start doing longer term campaigns is that we can adequately track and monitor the restoration of forest landscapes over a longer period of time, so we can actually track how well the trees are surviving and growing, what the benefits are being brought in terms of biodiversity and to the local communities.
What are the positive impacts of the Centenary Campaign on the environment?
We're envisaging that this campaign and the planting of 20 million trees is going to have a lot of positive impacts for the environment, particularly on areas of land which have become very degraded. There might just now be grassland where there isn't a lot of biodiversity. So one of our main aims in terms of the forest restoration is firstly to be planting a whole range of indigenous species of trees, and the very first tree nurseries that have been established in Embu County for replanting in Mount Kenya are rearing at least 6 different species of indigenous trees. So we want to avoid any kind of monoculture, and we want to make sure that we're restoring indigenous forest, which will be, which is most suited to the local environment. So that's a very important fundamental ethic of this campaign, and we believe that that's obviously best in terms of restoring the biodiversity that would have existed when the forest was fully flourishing. So that's one of the main things that we're aiming to do. And we're also, through the agroforestry element of the campaign, aiming to improve the environment or the land on which smallholder farmers are currently growing and raising crops through the introduction of trees on farms. both trees in their own right, and there will be some exotic as well as indigenous trees for growing food and medicine, but also trees that will improve the fertility of the soil on their homesteads.
So why the pressing need for reforestation in Kenya and worldwide?
Well, trees are vital to life on Earth. They are the lungs of the planet, and we currently have 3 trillion trees on planet Earth, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually only half the number that there were before the industrial age started. And we're continuing to lose trees at a net rate of 10 billion trees per year. And that actually means that 15 billion trees from natural and primary forests are being cut down every year, and we're only replacing those with 5 billion trees. And many of those 5 billion trees that are being used to replace our plantation trees, which often are based on monocultures, which isn't particularly healthy for the local ecosystems and for biodiversity. So to put that into kind of picture what that means, the scale of deforestation that's carrying on at the moment is equivalent to 50 football pitches of trees being cut down every single minute. So while some people are saying that the rate of deforestation is slowing down, from our perspective, it's still a long way to go.
And Paul, you've done a lot of work. You've got many years in forestry, experience in forestry, and I know that you've worked in Kenya as well. Can you tell us some about the work that you did there?
Yeah, I actually trained as a forester in Scotland and worked in Britain as a young forester, and then became a forester in Kenya, working for the government service there in 1984. On a programme that was called the Rural Afforestation Extension Scheme. That was really at a stage where the government in Kenya were beginning to realise the importance of supporting local community groups to plant trees. So there was a huge development of agroforestry, of planting trees on farms and around communities, around villages. So we worked with women groups, with school groups, church groups, and I think we planted about 3 million trees in Meru district, which is on the slopes of Mount Kenya. So it's a fantastic privilege actually to come and work with International Tree Foundation, and especially on the Centenary campaign. So this is an opportunity for us all to get together, to plant 20 million trees. Not just that, but really to help Kenyan people achieve the goals that they've set themselves to restore their forest cover, restore their ecosystems. And by doing that, they are actually contributing to global goals to keep our planet healthy and to look after our climate and look after the future